We're moving on to our next speaker. That was HIE, High. Now we're moving on to SNH. And for the next few minutes, we're going to be hearing from Dr. Sue Walker. She's going to share with us her inside knowledge as the Deputy Chair of Scottish Natural Heritage. She'll share with us what the organisation achieves and what the role of the board is in that. And Sue's again had a very broad board portfolio. I'm sure we'll find out a little bit more about what that is, and I'm looking forward to hearing her speak. Please, Dr. Sue Walker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I suppose I should open by saying, of course you all want to apply for HIE, but you also want to apply for SNH. And I was actually quite taken with the video, because I think that very much emphasised the importance that Scotland's natural assets have to the economy, whether we're talking about the Highlands and Islands or more generally. And one of the things within SNH that we're trying to emphasise at the moment is those linkages between natural assets and whether we're talking about economy or whether we're talking about health and well-being. So what I'm going to do in the short time I've got available is to talk to you about the SNH role, to talk about what the board role is within SNH, and then get into a bit of detail about what the board actually does, and then talk a little bit about my own experience, because on a board you will find that different board members have a different experience and do different things. So I'll give you a bit of a personal feel for what I have been doing on the SNH board. And I'll close with what motivated me to get involved in a board position at all, because a long time ago now, I'm quite long in the tooth now, but a while ago I was in your position of thinking, well, do I really want to apply for a board, and what actually made me go forward with that. In terms of process, SNH, like the Forestry Commission and HIEs, is currently looking to appoint board members. These will be ministerial appointments, so it's ministers who are in charge of the process. They're looking to appoint up to 5 members of the board, hopefully to start in April next year. And one of the key things that we're looking at as well as HIE is to trying to increase the diversity of our boards. We're very passionate about that. And while the audience today, I guess, we're largely looking towards gender diversity, we're actually looking to try and encourage people from all different aspects of society to try and come and help join us in taking forward a really inspiring organisation. So if I can get onto the detail now. So what does SNH do? I don't know how much you know about the organisation. We're looking to, in the parlance of the legislation that Amanda was talking about, we're wanting to secure the conservation and enhancement of nature and landscapes. We're wanting to foster their understanding and facilitate their enjoyment. And we're about promoting the sustainable use and management. And we do that by providing advice to Scottish ministers, but also to local authorities. We work in partnership with the public sector, the private sector, and the voluntary sector. And really, our whole aim is to try and get the enhancement of and the benefits from our natural assets, as I say, whether it's towards the economy or whether it's towards health and well-being. But, I mean, that's the sort of official stuff, if you like. What does it break down into in a bit of detail? Well, our budget is around 53 million at the moment, though, like everybody else, that will be on a downward trend over coming years. We have 768 staff, but we have a lot of staff who work part-time, so we have rather less full-time equivalents. We are based in 38 offices across Scotland, so we're delivering what you might call a national service, but we're delivering that locally. And our whole aim is to look to try and maintain and improve these wonderful assets that we've got in Scotland, but not just for their own sake, but as I say, to try and support community well-being, to support economic success, to try and improve the health of Scotland's people, to get them out and about enjoying nature, and through that increasing their opportunities to either have physical activity or to get involved in outdoor education, which hopefully will still stimulate a healthier lifestyle from them. And as I say, we're also looking in terms of what economic benefits we can gain from natural assets. So what does the board do? Now, Amanda's talked about quite a bit of this already, so I'll skip over this slide a bit. But it's about strategic direction. It's about keeping Scottish ministers informed about what we're doing. It's also about making sure that if we see any emerging issues that they need to take cognizance of, then we let them know. And if they then feel that a new policy is necessary, for example, then we will help them in developing that. We're very much about the proper use of public funds, and as a result of that, as a board, we're often looking at financial information that's presented to us and scrutinising that. And we're very much about the efficient and effective use of staff and other resources, particularly at a time when there is such pressure on public sector budgets. We're also engaged in appointing senior staff. I think that's something that perhaps hasn't been mentioned so far. But really, what board members are about are good corporate governance and also making sure you have a strong personal integrity. That is at the heart of being a board member. And then the final role that's also been touched on by others is this whole idea of representing SNH, whether that's to stakeholders or the public. So what's SNH looking for from its board members if you were thinking of applying this time round? Well, we'd be looking for people who can do some of these things. You won't necessarily do all of them. Don't feel, oh, well, I can't do this, so there's no use applying. What we're looking for is a team as a board. We'll have people who are specialists in some things and not others, but the whole idea is that we gel together as a team. So we're looking for people who can contribute effectively to strategy. I've mentioned being able to apply principles of sound corporate governance. We need to be able to constructively challenge the executive team, and we need to be able to influence making decisions within the organisation. There's a lot in there about advocacy, being passionate about the environment. We're interested in people who can present well, who can put forward the case for the environment, who can communicate with stakeholders and with the public. And we also need experience in some areas of particular interest to make sure there's a balance on the board. Now, the list I've got here, that won't necessarily be relevant this time round. This is what we were looking for when I was appointed, so that was at the last churn of the board. And you can see there a range of different areas of activity, and they'll be different this time. Some might be the same, but usually if you look at the advert there will be an interest in a particular area, and I hope that some of you out there may well have an interest in some of these areas, or indeed others relevant to SNH. But I would emphasise the main thing is to be passionate about the environment. That's a fundamental thing that we're looking for, and it's for people who can actually express that enthusiasm when they're going out talking to other people. So in terms of my own experience on the SNH board, and this slide was chosen just to show that SNH operates in a marine environment as well as a terrestrial environment. So we cover the breadth of natural heritage. So as Deputy Chair, obviously I deputise for the Chair, and that means meeting stakeholders. For example, today I was at a partnership meeting with the Cairngorms National Park Authority that was chaired by the Minister, but there were a whole range of organisations represented around the table. In terms of strategy and future thinking, I was involved in a board subgroup along with staff, one of whom is here tonight, to develop the forward corporate strategy for SNH. So that's an example of a short-term group to deliver a particular aspect of business. I'm on the Audit and Risk Committee for SNH, so in that I'm making sure that the board has the opportunity to scrutinise in detail more than the whole board has the opportunity to do, in terms of looking at our processes, our policies, our finances, to make sure all that is going the way it should, to make sure that there are no risks that are emerging that the board isn't aware of, and particularly at a time, as I say, of challenging conditions in terms of budgets, then audit and risk management are hugely important to an organisation. I've been involved in reviews of process, so myself and a SEPA board member, actually, 6 months ago, were asked by the Minister to review the processes that both SEPA and SNH undertook in determining applications for hydroelectric schemes. And we were charged with looking to see how much commonality there was between SEPA and SNH, and how we could try and streamline that process so that applicants were able to get their applications in without, for example, one organisation saying one thing and another one saying another. So trying to do that joining up between public sector organisations. And I have to say that's something that particularly appeals to me. In terms of stakeholder and public engagement, well, loads and loads of examples. Let me say that the last 3 that I've been to, I was involved in Orkney talking to stakeholders and the public about marine designations. The one before that, we had an open meeting in Aberdeen where I was talking to a group of NGOs about citizen science and how we could brigade the efforts of the voluntary sector, try and help us in terms of providing our scientific evidence. And then the meeting before that comes to mind very recently was talking to people in inner city Edinburgh about how green spaces can help in terms of the health and well-being agenda that I was talking about earlier. So quite a range. We're not just a rural organisation, there's a lot going on in urban areas as well. I've been an honest broker in casework. Now you might say, well, what's an honest broker? Well, there was a particularly nutty piece of casework where staff had really driven into the sand in terms of trying to get a resolution of that issue. And I was brought in as a sort of fresh pair of eyes, if you like, to chair a group of all the interested parties to try and resolve the conflict that there was between the parties involved around the table. So there are opportunities for that sort of role as well, if that's what particularly interests you. And then my final point, picking up on what Amanda was saying about, looking outwards. I represent SNH on something like the Joint Nature Conservation Committee. Now, I know there's somebody in the audience who knows all about JNCC, but to explain to those of you who don't, the JNCC is the coming together of all the nature conservation agencies within the UK, and it provides services to the various country administrations when perhaps it's critical mass activity where it's too expensive or too difficult for us all to do it differently, and they also provide a range of UK-wide services. So I represent SNH on their board, so that's a board position, but I'm representing the SNH board on their organisation. So that's another angle of how you might be used on a board. And you might also, for example, be a trustee or a director of a company that's actually delivering things for SNH. So what motivated me to become a board member? How did I get from sitting where you are to be where I am now? Well, as I say, I'm quite long in the tooth now. It goes back to 1998. And I was wondering whether a board member role was right for me. So how did I approach this? Well, I thought, well, have I got a skill set that people might be interested in? And I came from a background, I'd been an executive in the Environment Agency in England, so I had that sort of environment background. I had the big organisation background as well. I like being influential, and I thought, well, being blunt about it, if you're a board member, you don't have the dross of the in-tray every day. You do all the sexy and exciting stuff, and you ask the staff to get on with the boring stuff. It's not quite like that, the SNH staff. I do appreciate that. But no, I do like being influential. I like trying to impact on policy. I like making linkages, and that's why the mixed portfolio I have. So, for example, at the moment I'm Deputy Chair of SNH, but I'm also on the board of Food Standards Scotland. Previously, I've been on the board of SEPA, and I think Cairngorms National Park Authority was mentioned as well. And that mixed portfolio I like for a variety of reasons. I like the mixing because I like myself not to be doing the same thing every day. I like to be able to see the linkages between organisations and perhaps open challenges of communication or see lessons learned in one that can be applied to another. So for me, that mixing of lots of different organisations is quite important. And for me, very basically, I moved with my family to Braemar, which most of you will know is in the middle of the Cairngorms. What could I do in the Cairngorms? I had a young family and I also had a rural location. How on earth could I get a job that I would enjoy from there? And bluntly, I looked round and I thought, well, actually, board members, really logistically, they're very easy in many ways. You might think, gosh, they're not, but they're very easy. You know 12 months ahead where you've got your board meetings and when you've got them. And around that, you're able to work whenever you want to. I'll be working at midnight one night because during the day I had to do something for the kids or whatever. So it's a very flexible way of working, and it means that you can organise your life around it. Okay, there are some very set things that you have to do at particular times. But other than that, working groups, easy to fit in around other things. Diaries are not really a difficult thing to manage. For me, one of the challenges originally was obviously being rural and remote, particularly in the winter. How do I get out to board meetings? But thanks to HIE and colleagues, interconnectivity is so much better than it was 10 years ago. You can now do your web conferencing or you can do your teleconferencing in your slippers from home. You don't even have to get out of bed in the morning if you want to when it's snowing. So the interconnectivity, and particularly talking to our people at the other end of the line, that is so hugely helpful in undertaking board member roles now. There are real opportunities through that to mean that you can be based in a rural location, you can have caring responsibilities, and yet you can make a board member role work for you. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Okay, hands up if you've now got 2 job applications that you need to fill in. Sue, thank you very much for that. That was exceptionally illuminating. And lovely to hear your personal experience as well and how you've worked through that. So we've heard about what public sector boards do, and we've heard 2 examples of really good, real positions that are coming up very, very soon.